Welcome to Ocean Chicks Films.
Hey guys, welcome to Ocean Chicks Films. I'm Karen, in case you didn't know. And I just want to know if you guys had a really nice Christmas and New Year. I hope you did. This is my first video back for 2024. I can't believe it. Wow, right? The time flies. So I wanted to try something a little bit different this time. I want to tell you about the show that kind of started it all for me as far as horror goes. It was my first introduction into horror, and it was a long time ago. And what I want to do with this video is I'm going to share that in a bit, but I want to know from you guys what movie or TV show or series got you obsessed with horror. When did it start? Were you freaked out by it? Did it turn you off for a while and then you came back to horror? Or did you just become obsessed and fall in love with it like me? I want to hear all about it, so make really long comments in the comment section below and tell me all about it, because I'd love to hear all about it. I'm going to go first, but then I want to hear yours too. So when I was 5 years old, I bet a lot of you have this story. When you were very young, you watched your first horror movie, because back in the day it was a little bit different than it is now. There were no regulations and parents let us watch stuff. When I was 5, my dad would look after me on Friday nights because my mom would go to bingo with my grandmother and aunt. And so he would hang out with me, and he'd turn off all the lights and put a show on, and he was really into spooky things and horror and stuff like that. And I was just so terrified. But mine was Kolchak, the Night Stalker. I was terrified back in the day watching this in 1972. Really, really scared. And I think this series, it was a TV show and it went on for a few years, I think, something like that. And in the 70s. And it was just so cool, so classic for that time. I think it even holds up now, actually, if you can find the episodes on YouTube, or if you own the episodes. The episode in particular I want to talk about is called The Night Stalker from 1972. I believe it was like a feature, like a film kind of deal for TV, or maybe it was a longer episode, I'm not really sure. But anyway, it kind of stands out, and it's kind of one of those ones I remember from when I was little. This show freaked me out so much. It really scared me a lot, but because of it, and because it was such fond memories with my dad, we went on to watch The X-Files, Millennium, all those good shows. Because of that, I think it just became kind of a thing that I love, which is horror. I love all kinds of horror now, so I'm very obsessed with it. I talk about it all the time. But those shows were just something special. Okay, the premise of the show. You have actor Darren McGavin, who's just this incredible actor. Someone that you kind of recognized even if you didn't know his name. He's got that kind of a face and that kind of a way about him. I can't believe he was younger than me back then than now. People were so much more mature back then, I think. I don't know. But he plays this investigative reporter, Carl Kolchak. And he's a little quirky and offbeat. He wears this hat and, rumpled up, kind of crinkled suit. And he's kind of cool, but he's very different because he wants to investigate really bizarre stories and that kind of thing, and he wants to get right into it. He's always kind of falling into these kinds of stories too, but he wants to get down to the nitty-gritty of it and really understand what's going on, and that clashes with his bosses who want him to just write stories that are, basic and appropriate for the newspaper so that they can sell the newspaper, right? But he kind of goes offbeat in that way, and I love that about him because I'm kind of like that too, and I really respect and appreciate people that dig deeper into things and investigate that way. So it's very, very cool. But he gets into trouble all the time, and he comes close to always losing his job and nobody believing him, thinking he's crazy, him landing in jail, that kind of thing. But it makes for some great, great shows. And then we've got actor Simon Oakland playing Tony Vincenzo, which is his boss, plays his boss. He's really good in it too. But like I said, he's always kind of that middleman in between the higher ups and him, kind of going, what is he doing? You know, we just want a regular story. We don't want all these bizarre things for you to uncover and whatnot. So anyway, what I loved about this show most was that you had this sort of fantasy thing going on. It's the first time that I remember where there was like fictitious, you know, imaginary, whatever, vampires, aliens, ghosts, creatures, werewolves, that sort of thing mixed in with real life, so they made it look really believable. And so I think that's so fun. I love that so much. And I think that's where I really fell in love with the whole idea of horror, because I love watching a movie and you can kind of escape from your reality for a bit, forget everything around you, all your problems and that kind of thing, and have some fun. I love those kinds of movies. I have a hard time with more true life type of stuff because you have to be in the right frame of mind for that kind of thing, and it can sometimes trigger you and spiral you down, especially if you're feeling a little off when you watch them. So anyway, I love this fantasy kind of stuff. I think it's really quirky and fun. They didn't have computers and CGI back then, so everything was practical and sometimes a little bit hokey, but still very fun and still very creepy, because you'd see him going into these isolated places by himself in the night to explore and investigate these creatures with like no backup or anything. And he's not a police officer, he's just a reporter, right? So he's just going in by himself and checking stuff out, but so spooky and creepy that things are going to jump out at you and attack you and whatnot. And then the idea of no one believing you and you having to figure out a way to prove to everybody that that's there and that it exists, and wanting so desperately to write about it, you know, and not being able to. I think that's so neat. And I guess up front I should say that in this episode I'm going to talk with spoilers. You know, there's going to be a bit of spoilers in this one if you haven't seen it yet. So if that's not cool with you, click off now, go check out the episode, and then come back and we can talk about it. Or if you've seen it already, great. Just stick around and we can talk more about it. Okay, in this episode, we have a potential vampire. So cool. I love that. Since back in the day, my favorite vampires, like by far, hands down. Love vampire shows and movies and the books and stories and ideas of them. I just love that so much. So this one's really cool. There are many elements in this series, this show, that were so creepy, and they still are to today, but very classic creepy. One of the things that stands out is the musical score. The music is absolutely incredible. Now, unfortunately, I can't let you listen to it here because of copyright, but go check it out because some of the stuff in there is just so iconic and so awesome. It still gives me chills today. The sets too, very creepy, the way they do them up, and everything's very isolated, but it's still very realistic. It's just that, you know, being in a stairwell by yourself and you can hear somebody, but you can't see anyone. It's like the middle of the night. That kind of feel makes it very creepy too, but like a lot left to your imagination, not in your face kind of creepy. But I love that so much. That's why I love practical so much compared to some of the CGI. I don't hate all CGI, but some of it nowadays doesn't have the same, it's as though things are not researched as much, and the person making it, you don't feel it when you're watching it as much as you did back then. But definitely, you know, it would make you like watch the show and then the next day, early in the morning, walking to work and feeling weird like someone's following you or something like that. It definitely would leave you with that kind of vibe. And the lighting too. The lighting's really well done. I'm sure a lot of it was done on stage sets, but it just has that kind of flavor to it. And I love the 70s fashion so much. Kolchak has this very distinctive look. He wears this straw hat, this sort of beat up old sort of light colored suit that's always sloppy and messy, and a really old convertible that he drives around in that's very classic too. You know, and a big old camera because he's a reporter taking photos and stuff. Just love that. You know, when I was a kid in grade school, I did an interview because that was part of an assignment we had to do. And I remember back then thinking about becoming a reporter for a newspaper or for a publication or something like that. I remember thinking that actually, but never kind of materialized. I think I had a teacher down the road that said something stupid like, you're not really good at writing. Whatever. Don't listen to people like that all the time. Follow your dreams is all I'm going to say. Don't let people discourage you. I never got to do that, and of course things are much different now than they were back then as far as reporting and newspapers and that kind of thing go. But I can at least take that inspiration and maybe incorporate it into my comic book series somehow, investigating and quirky stories and, you know, writing stuff and that kind of thing. So anyways, I'm going to keep doing it anyway. One other cool thing about this show is Kolchak does like a monologue over top of the episodes. It's a way of filling us in on some of the details of the show, and it's done really cool as though he's using a voice recorder, which I have. I use this actually to record ideas for my comic books, for stories, and that kind of thing, so I love this. My first experience with one of these was back in university. I used to record lectures and then re-listen back to them, and I just think they're very cool. And he does that kind of thing, and we hear that over top of some of the episodes during parts of it to fill us in. So he'll say things like Tuesday, May 25th, 7 p.m. and then he'll go on to tell us wherever he's headed to or what he's doing, or update us on his case that he's working on. Very, very cool. Love it. Anyhow, it's a clever element that they add to the show to just give it some more flavor. I just love that. This episode, they're in Las Vegas and they find a woman whose blood has been completely drained from her and she's been dumped, you know, so they know something's going on, some sort of a killer, and they can't figure out how she's been killed or what's happening, and they haven't caught the guy. But throughout we see glimpses of a man, and that's what's cool about the vampires, the werewolves or whatever. It feels like they're people, like it makes it more believable, but they are these creatures. So the villain, we see partial glimpses of this person running away, just like a leg or arm or whatever scooting away, and we also see a light reveal of his eyes, you know, at some point, and they're bloodshot and his skin's very pale, so it's super creepy. I like how they did that. They incorporate it really, really well, and it's very different. And like I said, Kolchak is out there really digging deep and investigating. He always manages to stumble upon the creature or whatever in the darkness by accident, and he knows there's something going on, but nobody ever believes him, and he always gets into trouble. And in this episode, we had the doctor. There's a doctor that's kind of giving his views on how these women died, and he's played by Larry Linville, who was Frank Burns in MASH. How cool was that? Like, I loved that show so much. I watched every episode every Sunday night when it came out back in the day, and I've watched it in reruns since then. One of my favorite shows for sure. But yeah, it was cool having him in there, and he was really good in it too. But he just plays a small part, playing the doctor, giving the perspective on the whole thing. But anyway, Kolchak's putting it together in a weird way, starting to think this is a vampire. He kind of comes right out and says to his job, his work. Well, I guess that's not his. He's been hired to, he's like a freelance writer, right? So he's hired on to do these stories kind of thing. But anyway, he's not given tons and tons of freedom to do whatever he wants. And so that gets him into a lot of trouble. And I guess I should say Kolchak is like a good guy. You know, he's a really good guy, and these women are being killed in Las Vegas, and he's very, you know, he's concerned about that. But he doesn't kind of act like a journalist, like he's a reporter. He's acting more like he's trying to investigate a case as though he's a policeman or something like that, and he's not. So he kind of goes too far with it and takes it a bit too seriously. But he's kind of invested in this story too, because he's got this one girl that works in the casinos and that you know, he's kind of friendly with and hooks up with every now and then, and so he cares about her, and he's worried about something happening to her in this place too. So he kind of talks with her quite a bit to get to know stuff that's been going on with these missing women, and so he's really invested in it. But he's just a passionate kind of person who puts everything into his job and wants it to be meaningful. So you can really see it's really great. And the acting's really, really good in this show. And of course, Kolchak learns about the wooden stake in the heart. That might have been the first time I ever had an experience with that back in the day, actually, knowing that that was a thing. And so it's kind of funny. He's got this wooden stake. He's ready to go out and investigate this thing. But I mean, there's that risk that he's going to kill somebody too, right? And that's not going to look good for the paper. And there's the vampire needs blood, of course, so he heads to the hospital, and there's an orderly that's like there, and they get into this big fight, the orderly and the vampire, and it's kind of very hokey, cheesy, back in the day kind of brawl, if you will, and it just adds to it. It makes it really fun. And Kolchak ends up being there at the right place, the right time, and like chasing this vampire off, and they realize that, you know, they have a conference after about this case with the newspaper and all the people involved, and they are, you know, saying there's a 70-year-old man and he has this superhuman strength and that he thinks he's a vampire because of everything, but they think he's crazy, obviously. But we know different. And even the orderly kind of steps back from it because he's not sure if that's what's going on or what, like, because you could interpret it different ways. But anyway, so you're not really sure if Kolchak's just kind of over fantasizing the whole thing or whether it's actually true or real. So it just makes it more fun. And of course, these women are being found with these teeth marks in their neck, 2 puncture wounds, and, you know, drained of blood. So it is kind of strange. But anyway, he keeps pursuing it, and then he's warned that if he keeps going down this path, he's going to get arrested and in a lot of trouble because he can't go around killing people with a wooden stake through the heart. And the story always gets to a point where, you know, he's frustrated, he's stressed out, he doesn't know what direction to take with it or how to figure out what to do. And he ends up in the bar having a drink, and I'm sure the drink was apple juice and not actually alcohol like it probably would be nowadays, but anyway, very classic. And then that's where things kind of take that turn. And then they have another run-in with him, the vampire, and the police shoot at him, actually shoot him, but he keeps running like incredibly fast with superhuman strength. And so Kolchak learns from his investigation that, you know, vampires will be weak during the day in the sun when they're sleeping, and stronger at night. So they need to try to find out where he is in the daytime and kill him with a stake through the heart. And of course, you know, this is like, could get him into potentially a lot of trouble because you can't just go around killing somebody. But he's so determined to get this story and figure out what's really going on. And in the end, he gets in trouble, he's fired from his job, and he has 2 choices. He can either stick around and go to jail, or he can leave town, you know, get out of town. And he does. We see him driving on the highway in his convertible, driving away, and we have the monologue reflecting on, you know, what happened and everything. But man, these shows are so cool. Nothing like this is done nowadays. In my opinion, and really, really inspired me for enjoying horror and going down that path. And I love revisiting them. I highly recommend that you guys check them out too if you haven't seen them, or rewatch them if you've seen them from before, because I think they still hold up. They're still one of those shows that you can get lost in and just watch for hours, binge watch, that kind of thing. It'd be neat if like one of the streaming services brought back the series. I'd love to watch them. And of course, I love these shows in particular because of the supernatural element to it. I think it's really fun, but I like the real life kind of nature of it. I found watching these kinds of shows when I was younger inspired me to be done school and go out and have a career doing something really fun and cool. Life isn't maybe the same way as it was back then, but still very inspiring to watch. Very, very fun. You know, he's always left on his own, kind of getting through stuff and moving on to the next event, chapter, kind of thing. And really, really enjoyable to watch. And I think it was on for a few years back in the day. Pretty sure I might have watched them in rerun back then, but I'm pretty sure I watched them when they came out. I mean, I was 5, so it was a long time ago, but really, really fun. They're not super overly scary and crazy nowadays from the stuff that we've seen. So they're kind of suitable for everybody to watch, but still very fun. Great stories, creepy, creepy, creepy. And I forgot to say too, he would write out the story on an old school typewriter. So that was very cool too. Really adds to the ambiance. And of course the girl that he was having a little thing with, he asks him to marry her, but he ends up leaving town and going away on his own. But he always seemed to like get out of these weird situations. It gets really tense and crazy, but he always manages to get out of it and land on his feet. And his boss tells him he's a hell of a reporter, which he is, and he continues to go on and write the stories anyway. But yeah, super fun, really, really fun, really different. I love visiting them every now and then. So for my review, I'm gonna give this one an Ocean Chicks cult classic. I freaking love this film. I guess it's a film or show. So 5 out of 5. Highly, highly recommend that you watch it and check it out or revisit it if you've already seen it. Really, really fun. And if you have seen Night Stalker, you know, let me know what are some of your favorite episodes that you've seen of them. I know there was a remake, like a reboot kind of show that came out a few years back, but it didn't really fly. Because there was another show that had a different name that came out at the same time that was a little bit better than it. Anyway, I'll have to look more into that again because I forget, but I remember that. But this is the original one from the 70s with Darren McGavin. You gotta go check that out if you haven't seen it. And please don't forget to comment below in a long comment one of the horror movies that was the very first thing that you ever saw that inspired you to watch horror or turned you off of horror. Just let me know when that happened, what it was, how you felt about it. Describe it to us. I would love to chat with you about that. I think that would be a lot of fun. So I hope you guys are doing really, really well. I think that's it for now. I've been working a day job that's taking up so much of my energy and time that I've fallen off a little bit with my uploads, but I'm gonna get back on track soon, I promise. And I hope that this year brings all of you great blessings and wonderful health and fun adventures. And I will see you again soon. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video too, if you want, only if you want. And I will see you again really soon. Have a great day, you guys.